Hi and welcome to yet another webinar, and today we're going to talk about Gant's e-commerce experiences and also more in general and really focus on e-commerce today. And with us we have an e-commerce wizard, Linda Bustos, creator of Ecom Ideas and have a lot of experience in this space. So first I want to welcome you, Linda, to our the 3D podcast and the webinar, depending on where you're listening. And of course, my brother in arms when it comes to podcasting and webinars, Mattias Österberg from where?
Yeah, from Fibbl. And I work with our customers and our product. Nice to be here. I think this is our 9th episode, right?
9th episode.
And yes. You and me have been in every one, so
yeah,
soon hitting the 10.
Yeah. Double digits.
Yeah.
And welcome, Linda. Please just take 30 seconds, introduce yourself to our viewers. What do you do? Just give us the general.
Sure. This is hard for me to describe. I put together a website called Ecom Ideas where I just go around and try and collect what's new and trending and interesting for people who are building e-commerce products. So I also post on LinkedIn, and that's how I got connected with the Fibbl crew, because they're also coming up with tons of ideas. So I'm just always on the hunt for new and cool things to share with the community, and 3D is definitely one of those things.
Nice. And we can also add that we perhaps stole a little bit of Ecom Ideas to create Fibbl Ideas that is solely based on e-commerce or 3D. So thank you for that. And I think you bring a lot of inspiration to the community and showcasing what other brands are doing and what's possible. So we're just going to dive right into the Gant e-commerce experience. And I want your opinion on this first, Linda, because you have an outside perspective. So when you review their footwear collection online, what do you think? What comes to mind? What do you see with your eyes?
Okay, now I'm surfing on a desktop, which is important context because we know that desktop gives you a lot more room to play, but I'm also going to preview it in a mobile size on my web browser. And yeah, first of all, I love the clean look and the merchandising here, especially incorporating video and really emphasizing the brand. Right now I'm looking at this kind of brand level video, which, kind of gives you vibes. Yeah, so super nice, clean UX, and definitely reflective of a cool D2C brand.
Nice. And Mattias, you have been working with Gant for like many years now.
6 seasons.
And can you set the stage also just on like the technical aspect, like how they're set up? What do they have in terms of experiences and content? Just set that stage.
Of course. First of all, I just want to emphasize or to highlight what you mentioned, Linda, with the brand video. This is a new thing for Gant, and it's also being powered by the same 3D models that we do for them year after year. And for me, this is a big milestone, and I know it's a big milestone for Gant team as well, because we have been successful in doing the pack shots from 3D, and we have been successful in doing the 3D and versatile experiences. But this is the first time where they take the 3D models and they go outside the e-com a bit, and they make this kind of, what we usually refer to CGI, to make this kind of viral thumb-stopping video that they can use in multiple channels. And I think it's just a nice synergy that they can go even one step further and use it in another way. Now they have used it on the e-com to give this vibe. And I really think they captured the Gant brand so well in this video, even though it's 3D and digital and, everything that comes with that. It just feels Gant, so I really like that. But then, like what Linda highlighted, obviously you have the entire footwear collection out on the PLP, and those images is generated by Fibbl and from the same 3D models. On the PDP itself, something that we're going to talk more about today, since that was the latest A/B test, they lead with what we always refer to 3D first, which is when you have the 3D model at the forefront and you have 2D content secondary. And they have chosen to do so via a multi-toggle. So they have 3 options in the toggle, where 3D is the first position, image as the second, and then virtual try-on as a third. So that's the technical setup that they have. But it hasn't always looked like this. They have developed season after season of they getting new insights of how this performs for them.
Yeah, and before we go to where they were, what do you think about this experience, Linda? And of course, like Mattias mentioned, this kind of CGI brand video. Is this something you see growing as well to create that different feelings, or how do you view that?
Well, what I think about this is it looks like this was expensive to produce, right? The CGI, like it can tell. So I'll just describe it. I was looking at the women's sneaker section, and it's like these balloons, like a inflated sneaker styles going down the city streets. And it's, quite whimsical, quite like surreal, like. And yeah, it looks like that is expensive to produce. And whether that's like a conscious or unconscious brand, touch for somebody being on the brand site, that makes it feel like this is a very, like they got the budget to do this. So, but with the 3D model, right, that, we've got more tools, we've got more AI, we've got more video kind of capability, like brands can start doing this in-house more. They don't have to go to like $1 million agency to build, something for a PLP, which is just one of many, many in your catalog and in your categories. Like every single Gant category could have, every style of boot or shoe or sandal could have its own like CGI kind of experience. So I think that's really cool. And then also clicking through to the product page, seeing what you describe as the 3D first experience. That gallery tile is typically in, fashion and apparel, what you're going to see first. And to be able to see something that's closer to real life. That's the thing that with online shopping, it's always been a screen, especially in your hand. It's a tiny, tiny screen. So to be able to kind of bring something that's a little bit more lifelike and push it to the front, I think that's like really important. And I've seen the first, original, first the 360-degree view images. We used to do them back when I used to work with the Olympic store. And I remember we had a little like box where you would sit the product in and it would take all these camera, every single millisecond it would do that to get that 360 effect. But the user experience of that is still janky. It's still, you're taking it from one angle. You can't turn it around. You can't inspect the bottom. You can't, play and interact with it. So the way that everything has come forward over the last, 10 years, 15 years, and now get like a very seamless and instantly quite lifelike experience is very cool.
And what do you think? You said it. How important do you believe interaction is when talking about online shopping?
Well, when we just thinking about how to bring digital to be more like an in-store shopping experience, all of the stats and data that said like retail is 97% of shopping, right? And only 3% is happening online. There's still a lot of people that go in, especially with footwear, they want to pick it up and turn it around and handle it. So yeah, the interactive experience is just being able to, as close as you can through a digital screen, be able to, put it into your space with augmented reality, pick it up, see the size scale, see it on you. I think those things are important to have a modern shopping experience.
Yeah, sorry, Mattias, I'm off script already. It usually takes a bit longer, but when we go back to, you said it hasn't always looked like this on Gant's site because you have been there the entire time. Can you explain, describe how did it look when they started using Fibbl and the process of where they are today and why?
I just hope we have an old image of how it looks because it was very different.
I know we have. I know.
We must have it somewhere. But basically, they started out with implementing 3D using a button. So the user had to actively click a little button, and that was very discreetly in a Gant manner. And it said 3D view or 360 view or something like that. And what we saw back then was that the people who found or understood or at least clicked the button and used the technology, they stayed at the site for a long time. And they were also more likely to add to cart and make a purchase. However, it was only 2 or 3% of the potential consumers that actually clicked the button. So those first indications was like the seed for when the Gant team started to explore other alternative UX and UIs. And then along the way, we sort of invented this 3D first concept because of course it came with some obstacles or at least risks or worries that it was going to impact the site and affect the SEO score and things like that. We built it in a smart way, so we have a report that highlights that it doesn't affect it. so they tried it out, and as everything they do, they test things. They test and analyze, and then they learn, and then they implement it, and then they repeat like that. So that was how it started. Then the second iteration was 3D first, but they had a separate button still for the virtual try-on. So then they saw some numbers, and this is what we see today basically in the case study that we're going to talk more about. Then they saw, okay, it was 6.3 uplift when people got the variant with the 3D first. But then they saw like when people found the virtual try-on button and they actually physically tried the shoes, or digitally, almost physically, then they were even more likely to stay longer and add to cart and make a purchase. So then they started to experiment, okay, how can we get more people to understand or find or use the try-on? And now we're at the third iteration, and that's the interface that you see today that we have just gone through. So this is a great way of how we like to work with our brands, because it's not a matter if this works or not. I mean, consumers are used to what you said, Linda, like close to a physical store, twist and turn, pick up the products and explore it in the way. And I know with today's attention span of people with TikTok and everything like that, people want to control and just get relevant information. And here we have a tool that allows them to look at the details and explore the product in a way they can. So it's not about if it works or doesn't work, it's about how it works for the specific brand with all of the conditions and prerequisites. So it's a nice evolution.
It's a nice evolution. And what do you think, Linda, when you hear Mattias talk about their like 3-year journey with 3D, how they're testing, how they're working? What do you think about the approach?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to even talk even further about, what types of hypotheses you came up with testing that, because I see a lot of sites, especially trying to innovate with the gallery specifically. There's different types of buttons and toggles and things you can switch out a gallery. You can do different calls to action to like change a model or whatever it is, go through a product tour, interact with 3D. You have these 3 tabs at the top where you can switch between the different states and modes, right? 3D first, then you can switch to images, you can switch to AR, virtual try-on. And I think that's really, I think it's smart to put it up there. I don't know what rounds of testing and what the design decisions have gone through it in the boardroom, so to speak, on the team back end. But when I look at it on the front end, like I like to see that the controls are there, they're visible. And I've seen with image galleries, sometimes the controls and the calls to action, bottom left, bottom right, kind of hidden. Sometimes the background of the image, or especially if it's video and it's moving and it's cutting between scenes and stuff, those UI elements can kind of fade into the background and not be seen, especially on a smaller screen, especially in bad lighting, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that's totally important. And I think that's the absolute right approach, is to not just try it once and say it works or it doesn't, but then continually challenge and say, well, let's try to optimize it, by another 5%, let's get user feedback. Let's, you need to track all of these things.
Yeah. Indeed.
And another thing too, I like how you said about that, there was some concern about would it impact SEO or would it impact user experience and performance. And I think there's this kind of perception, or it's a valid perception, but, adding interactive elements, especially anything 3D, especially some, widget that needs to load on a page, that's going to impact page performance. And then, that's going to impact SEO and conversion rates. But there's a balance against the interactivity, and that can actually improve SEO, because all those signals are also being factored by Google. How long they stay on the page, are they interacting with elements? Are they taking next steps and actually continuing a journey, such as an add to cart, and keep going back to the collection page and I've seen some of your implementations with 3D at the collection page. I think all of those signals can more than offset anything that might be, adding anything to a page is going to add something to the page. So I think that the curiosity that the team has, and that you've been able to partner with them to, actually work on solutions and, keep it it's not a spray and pray. It's an actual program and an evolution of the experience.
Yeah, indeed. And one aspect of it, because I follow the LinkedIn page of yours, and I browse on Ecom Ideas every other weekend, and there are so many different ways that you can design a button or a toggle or another interactive element or a gallery, even so. And obviously that's one approach to achieve a hypothesis, if that is about getting more users finding or using the try on button. But another thing is also working with educational content around the feature, because this is not yet a standard out there. We have maybe closer to 100 brands that via us or someone else have explored this kind of area. We don't yet see it on the largest player, the largest retailers out there. So it's not a thing that every average consumer expects. So when someone uses the term AR or VTO or try-on, there is still different people that have different conceptions of what that is. So there's also this kind of maturity thing that we see just have grown over time, even at other clients that have had the same UX and UI since the beginning, where they started working with us. You still see that they increase like double or twice from the first year to now, just because it's becoming more and more available, and it's also becoming almost like a demand from the customers.
And that's interesting, and I want to pick your brain here, Linda. Because you said it, that when you have 3D on your e-commerce, you can start communicating in a different way. So if you, Linda, if you were to implement 3D, how would you think about the communication with the end consumers, so that they understand, that it's clear, so that they know what to expect? How would you attack that opportunity or challenge? You can choose whatever.
Yeah. Well, in a perfect world with access to every single resource and infinite amount of time, I would definitely try and leverage someone who can do user research on it as well, build the prototype, engage people early. If you can, get customers, like real customers for the brand that are match the profile, and do that type of qualitative study and research as well. Not every brand has the luxury of doing that, and sometimes has to make more heuristic decisions or model it after what other people are doing and run some A/B tests. So I would probably start with what am I working with and who's on my team who can help that. But yeah, and a disciplined and kind of rigorous process around that with curiosity. But yeah, I think that there's also like the nice thing about vendors that are building this stuff is they get to work with a broad range of customers, and also a broad range of international nuances, because like you mentioned, do people understand this? So is 3D across all of Europe, in every language, across, other international markets? Even UI can be different, right? There's cultures that read right to left. Do they scan the mobile page right to left as well? Are they going to notice a UI component differently just because of their eye tracking? You can continue to iterate and go down those paths. And again, that's going to depend on the brand, if they have a lot of sales internationally or not, if they focus on a specific market. And AR, that little icon, and icons too, the icons to tell a communication. 3D, I'm noticing like for visual search, sometimes borrows that Google Lens icon. we all kind of recognize a magnifying glass as search. From your perspective, have there been like icons that you would now consider conventional to communicate 3D experiences or virtual try-on? I've seen sometimes like 360 with the little arrow going around. What have you found?
That's a super valid question. And now when I think of it, I feel ashamed because we should have landed in an icon that everyone should use. But I think different customers have tried different icons. I think the most common one, or where everyone has like, okay, we agree that this is the one that we're going to use, that is traditional AR icon with those, how do you even call it? The box with shops in it, so to say. We can show it visually here. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, it's here somewhere now.
But I think like Apple and Google.
It's like a 3D box with the like, kind of more
exactly.
triangle.
And I think Apple and Google were the first to implement it. So I think everyone else just followed. For 3D, there had at least been 5 or 6 different approaches with different details. For try-on, that has been the most difficult one for customers, I think, because you have such a little space to communicate that if you click this button, you will open your camera, you will get the shoes on your feet. It's like almost impossible to describe that with just an icon.
But do you know what my favorite virtual try-on is?
I can guess.
Guess?
The one where you have half a mobile and half a shoe?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's becoming more and more adapted now. We can show it visually here on the screen. Maybe I can send a link to Linda so she as well see.
Yeah, it looks like a foot that like goes through a cell phone.
Yeah.
So they have that on the PLP.
And maybe that is gonna become the standard one without us noticing. Like we haven't actively said that our clients should use this, but I notice a pattern that more and more uses it.
Yeah, because you always talk about in the virtual try-on that's the next step in the shopping journey. That you start with the 3D, you start experimenting with it there, and then if you like it, then you try it on. So can you talk a little bit about this type of messaging, the questions that something also happens?
Yeah, I think exactly, and related to your icon question, Linda, I think what we have been obsessing about and what our customers has been obsessing about is the formulation in text, and that's where we see a big difference. So I don't remember the data on top of my head, but we had like one example where they just had the expression virtual try-on, and then they changed it to a sort of an animated button, which changed its text every 2 or 3 seconds. And the first line of text was, "Wonder how it looks on you?" ? And then it was, "Click here to virtually try." So it was really like putting the user and like, "Huh? Do you wonder how it looks on you?" And then like tell them, "Click to try on." That one is the most successful we have seen so far, but we don't have that broad of a pool of data, but a little test has indicated that at least. I see also that the free multi-option toggle that Gant has is becoming more and more popular as well. We saw almost a double in usages, and the UX lead again told me, from switching to the old one to the new one. So I think maybe there's a room to play with formulations there as well. So it's a fine balance between fitting everything in this tiny screen and tiny box and working with colors and icons and text.
Yeah.
But we get smarter every day with the help of our bold and innovative clients.
Yeah,
for sure. Did you see the icon, Linda?
Yeah, I saw the icon, and I think based on what Mattias, you were just saying, I think one of the challenges is when this is new and innovative, there's not a convention, right? So there is going to be that headwind of being able to, first of all, you're going to have to do the hard work of figuring out what it works at scale. And then everyone else can, if they copy you, can kind of piggyback off of that. But also the secondary calls to action. I've looked at a lot of your different implementations, and there's some in the PLP that have virtual try on as a button, like right in the collection grid. So you can see that as you're scrolling. I think it was Zach Footwear. And then also they have this card inside the grid that actually shows someone in AR, I guess it's a video or a GIF, of somebody actually using, having the virtual try-on experience on their foot. So then that reinforces when you see that little virtual try-on chip on the PLP card listings, and then when you click through to the PLP, even within that journey, you can kind of start warming people up and start kind of, like nurturing them to understand the things on the site. And certainly on the PDP, you can have a call to action in the buy box to virtually try on to supplement what's going on in the gallery. And I've also seen on other sites, I think it's Michael Kors, or it might have been Balenciaga, that going through their product list, and then they would have a little strip within the grid that is a call to action, virtually try on. So it's like you scroll, stop. You can launch the AR experience from here. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can secondary, third, fourth, just keep hammering the message and test which of those things work.
Yeah, I know it's Balenciaga because you send me the link.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And I think we should show it here because I feel
it's somewhere here we will show it. Even
though this is about Gant, I feel like you're touching onto something that Gant has also walked in the same pattern. They started somewhere, then they did this, and this, and this. And when I saw that post of yours on LinkedIn, I was like, whoa, this is genius. Because we have always implemented try-on as a thing on the PDP, that to help the user become even more confident, this is the shoe for me. But those guys implemented in an earlier part of the buying journey, and then it becomes like a discovery tool as well. So if you just add the option of having one model and then all the color variants, now you're not only giving the end user a more immersive experience, you're also giving them a faster way to find what they're looking for. We all know how pain in the ass it is to go to a store and try the products on, taking them off, finding the right size and things like that. Now you can just and try 70 shoes in 17 seconds, and having that option to implement that on the PLP or a homepage even, or maybe even in social media, I think that is such a cool way of exploring the technology.
But let's dive into Gant and the case study, and perhaps you can start by setting stage, Mattias, just what was the hypothesis, what did they do, and let's just talk through the A/B test and what they did.
So basically the hypothesis was that they wanted to validate to find out what does it do if we show a 360 experience instead of a 2D content where someone has selected the content. They tested this over 2 seasons on a total of 274 products across 13 markets. It engaged more than 400,000 users over spring, summer, fall, winter. And the end result was 6.3% an uplift in conversion rate, among some other interesting insights.
Cool. And what does that number tell you, Linda, just from reading the A/B test?
That's a huge lift. That's a kind of lift that people die for. But it also, it's not surprising. I used to sell shoes in high school, so I'm not surprised that going from a 2D flat image to something that's interactive, and especially the level of detail that you can show in 3D, like the tread, the stitching, moving through how the light catches that little metallic component on the label. Those little fine details that get washed out of a 2D image. It makes the shoe more exciting, more appealing, and maybe, more more pull the trigger, because it just showcases the product better, and also gets over any of the hesitation, not all of it, but a lot of the hesitation of whether you're actually going to like something, because even with generous return policies, it's a hassle. You're giving credit card information, you're making a payment. You want more confidence in a purchase, especially fashion.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're saying that, because that's one of the core focus on what Fibbl does. It's creating certainty in that you get what you see, that same product comes home. And Mattias, you mentioned also that there were some more hypotheses during this A/B test. Explain a little bit more. What did you talk about? What did you see?
It was not more a hypothesis, but they found out in what I referred to earlier, in the data, that they saw when people also used to try on. they saw that people spend more time, stay longer, and they were also more prone to make a purchase. So that was the result that led to another hypothesis.
Yeah,
that they're gonna test now.
Because that's something that we hear often, and I would love to get your feedback on this, Linda. Sometimes, often we hear like, yeah, virtual try-on, it's a gimmick, it's cool, but it's not good enough. And we have heard it many times, and when we look at the data, that data tells a different story. So what your thoughts on the virtual try-on, gimmicky gamey to real business value to create that certainty that you're mentioning?
I will answer that, but I have like a little thought just to close out what we were saying here on the flip in the conversion rate. Because a brand like Gant has other retailers that they effectively compete with. That customer might be actually in the store of another retailer, looking up, and they look up the shoe, they typed in Gant, they landed on the website. So now that there's augmented reality, there's better shopping features, there's more interesting things, that helps the brand. So I'm not surprised at conversion rates. Maybe that customer would have gone to retailer XYZ and bought anyways, and it's hard to attribute that, but that they're actually capturing and taking sales through the direct to consumer channel is awesome. Going back to your 3D virtual try-on, is it gimmicky? I think that one of the challenges is that early virtual try-ons, especially in apparel, have been lackluster experiences. I think shoes is a kind of a different world. I think that where we're at now is a shoe can render on your foot virtually, and change the angle and stuff and look at it pretty well. The missing piece is, how does it feel on your foot? Which I think might be another evolution. You scan your foot and you match that with some kind of 3D scan data that Fibbl can also collect as it's scanning. You're getting the dimensions, you can kind of understand the footbed, the width and all that kind of stuff, and then match those two things together where maybe you can't feel it on, but you would have a second layer of feedback or input to give you like a percentage, like a percentage likelihood that it's gonna fit your foot. But the aesthetics of it, I'm pretty impressed by.
So Mattias loves when I do this, when I ask him about the future. But today I'm going to ask you, Linda, about the future. So let's say we go 5-7 years into the future. What do you think brands are going to do? If we talk about footwear and bag brands or apparel, for that matter. When 3D is becoming more accessible, the technology is getting better, what do you think will happen? And all the big players, Apple, Google, like 7 years from now, how do you think brands will use this technology to better their e-commerce?
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be cross-catalog. It's going to be implemented on everything. Right now, like sometimes you'll be scrolling through a page and like some of the image tiles are going to be video and interactive, and it's kind of sporadic. But what I'm seeing, your side of the house, so the implementations with Gant and others are like actually already starting to do this. And I think that those are good trends that everyone should adopt, because it is, like I said earlier on, we're trying to really make digital as close to physical shopping as possible. So discovering a product catalog, and I don't know what direction devices will be in 5 to 7 years. I hope hardware continues to get faster. I hope that we're at 8G speed networks in the future, where some of the challenges of just like we need everything to load fast on a big long page. Those problems just kind of become moot. So everything can be interactive first. The static images just are inferior to interactive and 360 and stuff that you can virtually try on. I also think that there will be some kind of avatar profile that you'll be able to take with you as you shop across sites that will kind of load. Maybe there's a plugin in your browser or something. maybe it's Shopify, has a universal account with your details and it will carry over where that. So you would be able to, try things on your body more realistically and, just be able to surf a product list, seeing it on yourself already that has been customized and completely tailored to you. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. And yeah, so I just hope that hardware and, connectivity catches up to what, developers can build.
Awesome. Mattias, something to...
No, music to my ears.
Music to your ear. But okay, if you're watching this now, I want to thank you a lot for listening in, depending on if you listen on Spotify or you're watching this on YouTube or at our site. And of course, a very special thank you to Linda for joining us and giving your perspective. And as you heard, Mattias is going home working now with different mock-ups and stuff. So I want to just say thanks a lot for your participation. And by that, we will just say thank you if you're watching and have a good day.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.